All right, everyone, welcome back to Designing the Best You. And today we have a very special guest. So special, we had to, how many times did we have to reschedule this? A lot over the last few months here. But this woman is very special to me in my own health journey. As many of you have gone through the whole health journey and autoimmune and whatever you're dealing with, you're like, all these sensitivities with foods come up, and you're like, what in the world can I eat? And the things that I can eat are just not to my palate anymore. Or you're like, can I stop eating all the vegetables? I just want some kind of treat. But you know what? This woman here, Kerry Brown, she is the co-founder of Eat G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R, and she's actually been in the field of consumer branding for over 20 years. She most recently owned and operated New York City's most luxurious hotel for dogs. I'm very curious about that, by the way. And she worked for almost a decade with Lululemon, overseeing the company's US's community marketing during a period of tremendous growth. She is a busy, very busy and successful, which she didn't put in her bio, but I just added that in there, of a busy 5-year-old. And she is also a type 1 diabetic, which, for anyone who doesn't know, you're very dependent on insulin to survive. She had a partial thyroidectomy, and so therefore she also manages her thyroid levels. She has done the autoimmune protocol, or AIP, or my kids call APE diet, for months at a time, and now she eats that for a majority of her regular diet. She has been able to make numerous reintroductions and finds her body feeling healthier and younger on these compliant foods. She absolutely loves and is very good at creating amazing products that can bring joy to individuals and families with special dietary needs. So welcome, Kerry.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Again, after all these times of rescheduling. And so tell us, let's start off with Eat G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R. Everyone's like, what is that? It's an acronym, right? What does it stand for? How did it get started?
Sure. So, Eat G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R, it is an acronym. G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R basically outlines what our mixes are all about. So they are grain-free, almond and peanut-free, nightshade-free, gluten-free, etc. So basically, they're free of the top 8 or 9 allergens that people are dealing with, and the most common being dairy, nuts, eggs, gluten, etc. So it was funny as we were developing this business and this product line. One thing we were struggling with was like, there's just so much to say about what we're doing, right? And so we thought an acronym might be interesting, but it would have to be a pretty compelling acronym, because even AIP, it can be a little sleepy, right? Like just the acronym itself. And so we wanted it to say something else. And it actually came to me as I was breastfeeding my 2-year-old at the time in a dark closet. And the word just kind of started to circulate with all the nightshade, the gluten, that word just kind of started popping into my mind. So anyway, that's how it came about. And really, it's been an interesting journey for both myself and our co-founder, Heather McDonough. We've kind of taken different routes, but really in the end, as you brought up earlier, it was all about food as medicine. And how can you best thrive in a world where we are presented with so many different foods, and so many of us have so many different reactions to these foods, and every one of us is different in how we react to these foods. And what we wanted to do was create as a product that was as focused on as much elimination as possible, so that it could tick so many boxes that anyone could have it. Someone who's gluten-free can have it. Someone who's egg-free can have it. Someone who's on the AIP diet can have it. And so that's been our focus as we've developed the products that we now have.
And I think that's great. And by the way, they really do taste good, y'all. I mean, my husband he doesn't like half the stuff I make. Just gonna be honest. I've tried so many different things with me having to have things and my kids having. I think I posted a video a while ago a couple of years ago about with your oatmeal schmoatmeal cookies, and he is an oatmeal cookie freak. I mean, and he's like, yeah, I highly doubt. I mean, you and I both know back when they first started coming out with gluten-free stuff, it was nasty. It was so nasty, some of the
Yes.
packaged stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I'd just rather deal without." But he had tried them, and I'm like, "I'm gonna get this on video because I know they're amazing." And he was like, "Oh my goodness, these, yeah, you can make these all day long, Vanessa. They are incredible, and they're so easy too. You guys make it so simple. It's just adding like 2, max 3 ingredients to any of your packaged stuff. It's incredible. It really is."
I
And
remember that
huh?
video that you made. I
You
remember that
what?
video that you made, and I especially remember it because it was a man in the picture, and usually we're getting female feedback and stuff, and so it was so cool to see a guy like eating this stuff and being like, "Oh my gosh, these are actually good." You know, it's encouraging for us, right, to know that we'll call them like normal people, people who can eat on a normal diet or the standard American diet, that they also enjoy our products. That's the goal, right? Because our work, along with so many brands out there who are standing for the same thing, you know, our goal is to change that standard American diet and to have people say, hey, I can still have a cookie, but it doesn't have to have all the shit in it, right? I
Yeah.
can still enjoy my life and feel healthy and well at the same time.
Oh, and at the same time too, you're my husband even says this all the time. He's like, when I have things that, like Eat Gangster creates, he's like, I don't get a headache. I don't feel bloated. I don't feel like I have to sit on the couch forever, and things like that too. And it's just like you said, it's anyone can eat that stuff, and it's great, and it's something that you guys should be proud of too, because it's really changing our culture and how we're looking at sweets and how we're looking at some of those little treat things. Now, I mean, I don't think you encourage us to just sit there and eat all the cookies all day, but it's something that you can add to and still feel like you're real, right? You're alive, you're normal, whatever normal is, right, to you. And so tell me how you got on this journey, because when I was reading your bio, you're like, okay, you have Lululemon experience and marketing experience and now cooking or baking, right? I mean, how did you get into that? I know you've got the type 1 diabetes. So would you like
Mm,
to speak on those?
sure. So I think the story really starts with about almost 15 years ago. I was 31 years old, and oh, I've just aged myself. So no, everyone can do the math. Um, oh well, but at I was 31, and so the story of Eat Gangster kind of starts in from several dark places. And one of the big things about our brand, if you notice on our packaging, is the black and white flowers within the pops of color. And I'm
Mhm.
such a believer in this. And every time I talk about it, I tear up and I want to cry. But for us, it's all about restoration, and it's all about beauty from ashes. And it's what every one of us is going through in that have these kind of stories. But Heather has her side. My co-founder has her side of the story and how she kind of evolved in this. For me, my first dark moment was when I was 31 and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. But I'll say I really took a Western approach to that. I think, I was hit by a bus with the diagnosis. And so then I just kind of got to a place where I was like, okay, how do I start to feel normal again, right? So I got hooked up with all the gadgets. I'm injecting myself 5 times a day. I'm testing my blood sugar, just pricking my finger at the time. I didn't have a Dexcom or like a continuous glucose monitor at the time. So, it is a part-time / full-time job to just try to manage your life at that point. So that moves along, and slowly, as we all do, I adapted, right? And so I just that became my normal, and I was okay, as all the type 1s out there know. It's like, it's awful, but then you figure it out. Humans are incredibly resilient in that way, right? So
Mhm.
there I go along. And then fast forward about 8 years later, it wasn't until this next dark moment happened that it set off my desires for Eat Gangster and to explore food as medicine more. And that is that, so I have an identical twin sister. If you've met me, you've met her, and vice versa. We are so much alike. And she's incredibly successful. She has 6 restaurants with her husband in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're amazing, and she's amazing. She's someone that I aspire to. Just her confidence and all that stuff. I just have always looked up to my twin. So anyway, when we were heading into nearly 40 years old, she suddenly started having some mental health issues. Um, she had always been fine, and then all of a sudden started having some anxiety here and there, and then she had to stay at home.
Mm.
She had constant panic attacks, several a day. Um, and it got to a point where her husband at one point had to fly away to California for something. So he called me and he said, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable leaving Jamie alone. Can you fly down to Charlotte and see her?" And I was in New York City at the time. So I did that. I thought, well, that's funny. I wasn't aware of the extent of what she was dealing with.
Mhm.
I get there, Vanessa, and she has 3 children. She is unable to do really anything but to sit on a couch and rock herself. And there were no answers except that she had gone to some doctors and they had given her different medications, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, all the like. And she did insist. She was like, I there's something wrong with me. It's not, I'm not crazy here, right? Like there's something going on.
Mhm.
And so thank God it pushed her to just start to dig into really the idea of, is there some sort of bacteria that is overtaking my body? You know, she just
Mhm.
started kind of going there. Googled, long story short, she found the AIP diet and that was helping some people. So she put herself on that right away. Vanessa, within 2 weeks, her panic attacks were
Going. Mhm.
gone. So I watched my twin sister dig herself out of this dark hole, darker than I've ever been in, where she was suicidal and everything in between. All of a sudden, little steps within weeks of each other and changing her diet, she began to become normal again, you know, in her mind. And so she has now stayed on that diet for 6 years. But when I saw that, and then 6 months later, I saw her competing in triathlons, which we did in
Wow.
our 20s, and now she felt like doing that too. I thought, what can this do for me as well?
Mhm.
So I put myself on AIP for just three
Now, were
months.
you having symptoms or anything? Or are you just like, I just want to see what I can do?
Just want to see what I can do. I
Yeah.
was jealous of her because she's doing triathlons and I'm sitting here like, I can't do triathlons. My knees hurt.
Mhm.
I used to be able to do that, but I played basketball in college, so I probably have a lot of pain. No, for me, it was a very high gluten sensitivity.
Mm.
You take that out of my diet, I now run every single day. I go for a run every day at 6:30 in the morning. And I started doing it then and I thought, wow, this is amazing. It's life changing and all it is food.
Yep.
And the thing that I think we have to get the message out about, and I know you're doing, and you're doing a wonderful job with it, is there is no money for the government, for pharmaceuticals, what
Mhm.
have you, in telling us to eat the
Yep.
way that your body should eat. And everybody's different.
Mhm.
There's no money in that. What
No.
they need are lifers on thyroid medication and insulin, and that's what they need.
Yep.
And so there is no push to do anything else because there's no money in it.
Mhm.
But this is the big thing that us food companies are working to do is, you know what, hey, there can be great success in this and people can feel wonderful and we can be changing the world and allowing people to live their full healthy lives. And so anyway, that story there was what really propelled me to discover AIP. I reconnected with Heather. She was a longtime friend just on Facebook. We
Good
reconnected.
old Facebook.
I know. I had known her for 20 years on
Mhm.
Facebook. But then I came to find out she was an AIP coach and a
Mhm.
nutritionist and had restaurants and was a recipe developer. So she and I teamed up um, and created Eat G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R from there. So it's been a wonderful journey so far.
It sounds like it. Wow, it's amazing what drives us to do what we do. And like you said, food is medicine and it's going to be a little different for every person, but it really does change what's going on in our minds and in our body and all those things. And so, you talk about like, okay, well, we have pharma and we're talking about like the medications and stuff. Now, are you still on any of those medications? And I never say it's like right or wrong or anything. I'm just always curious, like how much did food change someone's conditions?
Yes. So I am absolutely still on insulin. As a type 1, your body is creating sugar anyway. So you need insulin in order to have even the sugar that your liver produces, have that taken to the right places. So I am still on insulin for that. But um, when I have my tight control, and I'm a human being, so I am never gonna say, "Ding, I'm the best." I go back and forth where I have great control and I don't, and it's a monthly cycle, and it's a this and a that impacts all of
Mhm.
those things. Um, but absolutely, I probably need 60% less insulin
Oh,
when
good.
I have tight
Mhm.
control and I'm on AIP, et cetera,
Mhm.
because I think my body is just it's working better. You know, a type 1 would always still need it, but you
Right.
will see shifts in those insulin needs with that. Thyroid, it's hard. I am still on thyroid medication too. I had
Mhm.
a partial thyroidectomy, so only half of it works. I do, I just try to eat the way that we eat to try to supplement that. But I haven't found that a balance. I tried probably a year or so ago to get off or reduce, and I was so lethargic and not able to be me that I still am on that as well. So, and no
And I
apologies
think
for
that's great.
that.
No, 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 and I think that's great that you have taken so much time to understand how your body feels. Not necessarily all the things of how it works, but like how it feels. And so many people are just like, oh, well, a doctor told me to take this and in this quantity, and that's all I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life, and nothing's going to change, like we talked about earlier here. It's like once you can start to slowly understand your body and how it feels, you can change it. Yeah. Some of us, I'm not on any medications, but I'm still on thyroid supplements because of my thyroid, my hypothyroidism and the stress levels. And I'm not perfect either. I'm like, there's times where fights with the kids and fights with all the stuff increases our stress levels. And then you're like, I need food and I don't want the food that I'm supposed to be eating. And therefore, all my levels are off and everything. We're human and that's okay. But having that awareness of your own
Mhm.
body, I think that's what you guys are trying to communicate too. It's like, here, you can still eat these ways, but still please eat the way that you're supposed that you feel, and then understand. I teach this to clients all the time. Okay, if you can't have eggs and you want to have an egg, great, but just know how you're going to feel after you have
Yeah.
that, how long you're going to feel that way. And it's okay. Don't freak out. Give yourself grace, give yourself compassion. We weren't meant to be on this earth to be perfect in everything and whatnot. But I think that's great that again, you just understand that awareness. And I appreciate that. And
I
it sounds
really
like,
appreciate I appreciate how you approach that because, I think when you are doing an elimination diet or you are, on AIP, it feels like the police are going to come after you if you eat a nut, and we have to remember that there is no AIP police. And I learned that from Wendy Washington Hunt, if you know her, from Wendy's AIP Kitchen. I remember her sharing that with me. Um, but there it's just you. You're
Mhm.
just doing your best and you're just trying to take care of yourself. And sometimes having that egg is exactly what you need to do. If not even just to learn the lesson of like, oh yeah, this doesn't make me feel good. But we need to
Mhm.
have that freedom in life, and we are built for that. And again, I mean, it's why we created the mixes too. Like, plenty of people will use our mixes and then add peanut butter to it, or nuts, or chocolate chips, or whatever. And
Mhm.
awesome, like, do your thing. Like, it's not meant to be like, oh, don't put this in it or that. Do your thing and be in a flow in it. And our mission statement is we create foods that bring freedom and joy back to those on restorative or restrictive diets. And that's
Mhm.
just the idea. It's just it can be really dark to be in a place where we have been, and
Mhm.
uh, it doesn't need to be.
No.
This can just be um, a hopeful solution for people. It can be something that brings new things to someone's life if they're open and willing to do it. It doesn't need to be
Oh, absolutely.
pressureful or anything like
Mhm, absolutely. I mean, I have a friend who's doing the AIP right now, and she reached out to me. She's like, Vanessa, oh my gosh, I can't have this and I can't have this. And I'm going hiking this weekend. What can I have? And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, if you want to have whatever you want to have, if you're like, I don't feel good with eggs, but I really want an egg. Okay. Eggs are stuck in my mind for some reason today, but or if I want to have whatever it is, like have it. Just know that you just might feel, or just track how you feel. Like for me, I
Mhm.
have a strong intolerance to eggs. I just don't, my body doesn't process them well. I don't know why, it just is. But when I know
Yeah.
I haven't, I'm like, I'm gonna have brain fog. Please don't schedule a podcast with me afterwards or any client meetings or anything like that, because I'm gonna be like, what? Or I'm gonna be tired or whatever it is. And I might get bloated if I have more than one. I just know those things, and that's okay. My middle son has a high intolerance to gluten. He's not celiac, but he has a high intolerance. So he knows that when he has it, he's going to have a tummy ache or diarrhea. And I'm at 6 years old. I am very, and I'm sure you do this with your daughter too. It's to be able to teach them how their body feels when they're doing something, when they're interacting with people. And then on top of it, the food is just one of the greatest gifts that we can give our kids. Because, and I think you said it earlier too, is if we can give people this freedom and this joy back in their life for even just a period of time by giving them foods that their body's able to accept, then they're able to go out there and do what they were supposed to be here to do on this earth. And so
Mhm.
many people I've watched, you talk about the dark places, I've watched I had a career coaching and resume writing business. I mean, I still have it, but it's not quite so active right now. It's going to be again soon here. But I watched executive clients just be in these dark places and then be like, I'm gaining weight, I'm doing all these things, I'm not feeling good and everything. And it's really hard to see that with people who are so incredibly intelligent, and we all are in our own ways. Just go down this path and think that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And something, that you're doing here is bringing light to those people. And I think it's so amazing. And it just came out of your own personal life and watching your sister come out of it too. And I know it's been a blessing for our family. And I've watched you online for all these years. It's just be a blessing to so many other people as well. And I just want to even thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And encouragement like that, like keeps us going when we're like, okay, what's the next step? As we're trying to
Mhm,
grow this thing. But
mhm,
I think the important thing that people need to see or at least explore is the fact that most of us, and I won't say everyone, because there are people ridden with disease that are not able to get out
mhm,
through food. And we can't blame that or say, oh, you should just not eat gluten. It's just
mhm,
not the solution for everyone. But um, the fact that, and I know this is a fact, that we have more power over our health and our minds um, than we've ever realized.
mhm,
That by being aware of what impacts our body, what
mhm,
impacts our mind, and just deciding to choose a different option to eat or what have you, we can increase our health. Whether that is our joint pain or our mental health or what have you.
mhm.
There are shifts that will happen in your life if you make choices like that, because you have the power to do it. And I think it's always like, even when I was diagnosed with type 1, it was just kind of like, here you go. If you want to live, this is what you're going to do there,
Mhm.
and so then you're just ticking the box, and but there's more to it than that. And I wish I had known it earlier, that I had more power, because through those 8 years where I wasn't looking at food as medicine, I could have been running every day. My neck hurt so bad I couldn't turn from left to right.
Mm.
Those all 8 years, I couldn't do any, like spinning hurt,
But you
yoga hurt.
compromise, right? You
But had I just known, oh, I do have a severe intolerance to gluten. I'm not
Mhm,
celiac either, but the fact that I know that, I can move around now. And the
mhm,
other thing that's interesting to kind of chat through is, I always call it food creep. But I was living in Mexico
mhm,
for 3 months last year. My husband's able to work down there, and so and I can kind of work from anywhere. So I was living down there, And there's all this amazing Mexican food. And one thing that I was missing so much were just like soft tortillas. I don't like corn tortillas, but I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm going to start buying this low carb tortilla. It's low carb, so and I'm type 1, so that's positive.
Mhm.
And I just really want like a yummy whatever. So for 2 months, I started eating those just like once a week or so. I would have
Mhm.
one or two or whatever, but they had gluten in them. I got back from Mexico and I was unable to lift my left leg. And what
Oh.
was so cool about it is I absolutely enjoyed my time in Mexico. But when I realized that I could not lift my left leg, I knew exactly what it was. And I took that out of my diet. And 2 weeks later, I was able to
Mhm.
run again and I had no pain. So I think it goes back to what we talked about with the eggs, but um, the food creep is something that's kind of interesting to kind of think through and talk through of like,
Mhm.
allow it to come in, but always note how you're feeling. Some of these foods take weeks to impact, so it's very difficult to kind of figure out. But if you can kind of pinpoint those things, enjoy when you can, but in general, don't allow the creep to happen with the foods that really impact your body, like I did.
Well, exactly, and if you want a good tortilla recipe, I actually just made one this week for my kids with almond flour, and then I also have met one with cassava flour, and they're like, "Mommy, these are the best for Taco Tuesday ever. You have to make them all the time." And I was like, "I think I will. I think I will
Yes,
because these were
please.
darn good." So I'm gonna
Oh,
send you
good. That's
maybe you can
great.
come up with one for Eat Gangster there too, with it,
Yeah,
but
there we go.
it's incredible because right, it's like Mexican is really hard to eat with AIP. I've had clients and they're like, "I just
Yeah.
want enchiladas." I'm like, "Okay, so what can we do?" Because I got I'm a nutritionist too, and so it's like you sit there and you're like, "What can I do? Okay, how can I do? How can I make it taste good and look good too?" Right? That's important.
Guacamole.
Look good, right? Guacamole, yeah, is
Use a
about it.
lot of guacamole.
And carnitas, that's about it, right? That's what you really do. Um, but yeah, so and I love because we see every once in a while your daughter and whatnot on social media too. And I think going back to, you talked about people who can't get rid of their diseases, and that's just something that food that can't solve. What you can do too is if you have kids or you have other family members too, you can show them good, healthy ways that their lives can be impacted by. And by you bringing your daughter and I bring my kids on every once in a while too, and whatnot, is it shows them what is possible. And like in our family, they make their own lunches. We've got one child that right now, unfortunately, has candida. And so he's got a very strict, like, I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy. I know you're in third grade and like this stuff is really important, but you can't have. But he is adapted so well. And he tells his friends at school and at church, he's like, I can't have that. And I have to bring another snack because I'm healing my body. And it's so great to be able to see that. And then you've got another one who's got the gluten thing, and the other one's like, I can eat whatever I want. I don't care. So I'm like, yeah, right now you can. You're only 5.
Yeah,
And
it's
now
coming
you
for you.
yeah. I'm like, "Wait, it's coming." I'm like, "We have some genetic things going on. It's coming." But, it's just great to be able to make that impact. And even like I make sourdough at home, and it's taken a while to really get it really fermented so that those of us with gluten intolerances can actually have it. The first handful of loaves we couldn't, and we would get impacted by it. But this year, I gave loaves to the teachers at school, and the third graders teacher was like, you know what? I do make sourdough too. And I actually want to collaborate with you in the classrooms and teach the kids how to do things like sourdough starters and take control and be able to be like, look at this is something I can do. And this is something that has a direct outcome and is something that's healthy and can be carried on, right? Starters can be carried on for years and years and years and years and
Yeah.
generations I've heard of too. And so things like that's getting into the schools. I know you're doing this too, getting into schools and communities and things like that. Typically you teach a child something. What do they all do when we go to the store? Mommy, so and so said this, or a teacher said this, or I learned this in school. Can we get this? And that just starts to impact the families. And I think it's just such a great thing just watching you and other people in the food community who are making changes do this with their kids in the communities.
Yes, it's amazing. It's funny. I'm reminded of my daughter when So I have her gluten-free, but I allow her some gluten because I have this hunch that maybe it would make things worse if she didn't have any. I have no idea. Maybe I should have her off totally. But like if she's at a birthday party, I let her have normal cake, that kind of thing. But at home, we're gluten-free. But it's so funny because it's usually in the potty that she'll say something, she'll go and then she'll say, "Mama, what did I eat today?" And I'll say, "Well, yeah, this isn't." And she'll be like, "I think that's the problem. Come here," you know. And she'll be like, "Yep, you're probably right," you know. And but it goes back to what you're sharing is like just having the awareness. It doesn't need to be a life sentence. It doesn't need to be like you're in jail, but that you're aware of, okay, my body digests these foods in this way, and so da 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 da, da, you know. And so I think, yeah, I think just for their overall long-term health, it's going to be I hope, a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think.
Oh, good. I'm not the only home where you have to go and evaluate their poop. I mean, I enjoy it, so it's a whole nother like level of looking at it. But they do the same thing. They're like, "Mom, look, can you come see?" And I'm like, "Yes, I will come see." Yes, I also encourage it too, because being the practitioner that I am, we do stool tests. But it's like they sit there and they're like, again, the middle child, he's like, "Mommy, I think I ate something, but I'm not sure what. Can you come look?" And it was yesterday, and I'm like, "Yeah, that would be diarrhea. You probably had some gluten touch somewhere, and there's an issue there." You know, or the oldest one's like, "Everyone, come look at mine."
Look at what I've done.
I don't know about you, but like when years ago when we lived in Phoenix, we're in Chicago now, we had like a birthday party and their themed colors were like green and blue and they had cupcakes and literally sure as SHIT, right? So the colors were in the poop and they're like, "Cool, guys, look at this."
This is amazing.
So like I remember with the oldest one be like to the middle one, "Can you go poop? I want to see what color yours is." And I'm like, "Oh my, I'm leaving. Like I'm leaving right now. I'm done." But they are aware and it's really cool to be able to teach them how to be aware and not, and I tell this to a lot of clients too, because like, "Oh my gosh, well, what, you know, I don't want to share this with my kids. This is, I'm really ashamed of how I've been, eating or what I've been doing to my body or the emotions around it." And I'm like, if you don't share that with your kids, those experiences, how are they going to be able to maneuver life? What
Yeah,
happens when you're
true.
not here and they have to do those things? And we're not going to be able as parents, unfortunately, teach them everything they need to know. But if we can teach them some of those basic things like being aware of how we're feeling when we eat, being aware of what happens after we eat, or just how to manage right when you get the diagnosis. I don't know about you. You talked a little bit about it. I was not a very I don't want to say good person, but I was not emotionally like good at all around receiving any of the diagnoses that I received. And I just like, fell into this dark place, right? Like you said, and you're like, well, now what?
Mhm.
I have to depend on, a doctor to tell me what to do and how to do it and how much medication or supplements or whatever it may be. And, whatnot. They don't talk about lifestyle, but if we don't teach those things and it's hard, the hard stuff to them, where are they going to end up in the same spots that we were?
Well, that's true. Yeah, our generation has really been uh, impacted, well, more than any other, in particular in the United States, with that. And so, yeah, our jobs, particularly as moms, is to hopefully help our children um, just to be better educated and know what to look for. It reminds me one other thing that we get a lot of like customer emails in and stuff, and a lot of them share these stories around like, yeah, I went undiagnosed for 4 or 5 years with da da da, and there were no answers and that kind of thing. And I think it's important too to kind of talk about quickly, because I know our time is probably ending here soon, but just to talk about if you're not getting the answers that you need, elimination diets are a neat way to go to try to just take a little bit of your health in your own hands. But the
Mhm.
other side of things, and I just went through this. So my business partner, Heather, is a nutritional therapy practitioner, and
Mhm.
she's also trained in analyzing your blood and stools to kind of get a better picture of your body. And
Mhm.
so I went through that with her. I had her analyze my stools and my blood work, and
Mhm.
it was fascinating to learn about. And that's something that any individual can do. It does cost money, and so that but there are places that can help you with that, with that, to be able to use those resources to get a different sort of picture rather than going to a Western doctor who will look at you maybe and say, you look fine, things are good, da da da. Getting a nutritionist to actually go through your levels can identify so many things that you could just do on your own to make it better for yourself. And it'll give you such a good picture because your blood and your stools are going to tell you so much of what's impacting your digestion, your body, what have you. So anyway, just a suggestion in there to people, if you're on that health journey and you don't know what's going on, those are great things. You do that too, right?
Yep.
Do you?
Oh yeah. I mean, like you said with the stools, you can find bacterias that are off, and you can find like parasites and worms. God help you if you have those, but right. But you can find yeast infections. I mean, for example, even when I did it years ago for myself, I found an H. pylori. Well, that was stopping so many things. I could have eaten whatever, like,
I had that too.
right?
That's what I just had.
Right? You're like, I have to change my toothbrush how many times, right? Type thing. But now that you know, and I tell this to so many people, now that you know, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself. And it's possible once you have those answers, and you can get them a lot quicker through a nutritionist or a holistic practitioner. And yes, it does cost money. We can't change the lab fees. We can't. That's just
Yeah.
what it is. But it provides so much insight, so much. You could see someone has, a chronic staph infection, and you're like, well, that's why, or they have
And we would
leaky gut.
never see
Yep.
that. You would never
Mhm.
see that.
You wouldn't see that. And like you said, with blood, and I even do urine tests too. And I do the blood, the urine, and the stool test. And it's like people, and I do hair tissue tests too. So you can see so many
Mm.
things with that big picture. And you're like, wow. I mean, I spent over 15 years trying to figure out, I'm like, something's not right, something's not right. And then finally just diving in. I mean, they told me I had Addison's disease for all these years and I was on medication, and I really didn't. It was just, I had a lot of childhood unresolved trauma that just caused actually faked disease in my body for a period of time, created the Hashimoto's. Yes, I have
Wow.
that. I can't get rid of that. It's in remission, but can't get rid of it. But
Wow.
all of that stuff I did the same thing. Like, I wish I would have had those tests years ago. But the thing I know I want to tell people, and as we're closing up here too, is that you can't change the past. But once you have the information, you get connected with the people who have the information, you get connected with the right foods for you. Because, right, almonds can be good for one person and really bad for another person. Anything can do that. I had avocados for a while, so that whole guacamole thing sucked. But
Oh,
it
no.
did. It was like, I love this stuff. But once you get connected with all, and you understand, I mean, my goal is always to say, you know what, I want me to be the last like practitioner you ever see, because you shouldn't have to
Mm.
go through all that pain. You should be able to, just like we teach our kids, we don't want them to live at home forever. We love them dearly. We don't want them to live at home forever, but we're giving them the gifts of all these different things so they can go out there in the world and take care of themselves. And that's what, my goal
Mhm.
is. And I'm sure that's part of what your goal is too, is like, here, I'm teaching you some different ways that you can eat and different ways that you can, treat your body, and with some fun and excitement, and bring that joy back, like you said. And I think it's just such a wonderful thing. So as we're closing up here, if someone just jumped in on the podcast recording right here and said, like, what is one thing that you would leave them with from all the things that you've learned and the things that you're doing?
Mm. Um, I mean, it's such a simple thing, but I think that just as far as that person goes, um, start to journal, start to look at what's impacting you, and as you're eating, as you're even in stressful situations or what have you, start to figure out what is causing problems in your life. I think the biggest culprit that I see from all of our customers is gluten. So
Mhm.
look there as kind of like a pointer potentially. But just start to see your body, whoever this is I'm talking to, is going to be different from mine, from Vanessa's, from anyone else listening to this. So really, really dive into your body and how you're feeling, and journaling, and really taking note of um, what's making you feel certain ways throughout the day, can give you so much power and direction for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
Well, so Eat G.A.N.G.S.T.E.R products, we make all baking mixes that are AIP compliant, and so they're free of all the stuff that we talked about. So you can buy our products online on eatgangster.com, and then you can also go to amazon.com. We're available there as well, and sometimes the stock is different. So if you can't find one place, you could try the other. And we have a couple of wholesale accounts smattered throughout, but that's it for now. So that's where we are.
That's awesome. And we'll have those links in the show notes for you guys too. Thank you again so much, Kerry, for coming on and sharing and being vulnerable. We really appreciate it. And all the people who are listening are definitely going to appreciate it. And please go buy her stuff. It is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Uh,
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Thanks again for having us on.
Of course.